Welcome in, ready to shake things up. Today's deep dive is all about breaking the mold. We're talking 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, the PayPal guy, the guy who helped build Palantir. He definitely knows a thing or two about doing things differently.
Absolutely. This isn't your typical business book.
Not at all. This
Yeah.
is about more than just launching a tech startup. This is about challenging the status quo, no matter what your field is. And thankfully, expert speaker is here to help us unpack it all.
Glad to be here.
One of the things that really struck me was Thiel's whole take on competition. He practically throws the whole competition is king idea out the window.
He does. It's almost like he's saying, forget everything you thought you knew. I mean, he literally says that capitalism and competition are opposites.
I know. Bold statement. So how does that work? I mean, how does that compute?
Well, what Thiel argues is that when you're stuck in this cutthroat competition, everyone loses. Everyone's fighting for scraps. Profits shrink, innovation dies, and it becomes this race to the bottom. But when you create something truly new, something 10 times better, you change the game. You're not competing anymore, you're dominating.
Okay. So you become a monopoly.
Exactly.
But monopolies, those are usually seen as the bad guy, right?
They have a bad rap, for sure.
Yeah. But Thiel actually sees them as the key to real progress.
He does.
He uses Google as an example,
Yeah,
right?
it does. Google's a great example of this.
Yeah.
They kind of downplay their dominance by saying, oh, we're just this small fish in this giant sea of online advertising. But let's be real. They're the big fish. They're the shark in the ocean. And Thiel argues that they do this strategically to kind of fly under the radar, avoid the antitrust scrutiny. But what he's getting at is don't be afraid to define your niche, your area of expertise, very specifically.
So instead of trying to get a tiny slice of a huge pie,
Find that small, specific market you can dominate.
start small, monopolize, then expand.
Exactly. It's easier to rule a village than an empire.
Love it. And this ties into another concept that Thiel keeps coming back to, the power law. It's kind of like the 80-20 rule on steroids.
It is. It's about recognizing that in many areas of life, a small handful of things are responsible for the vast majority of the results. A tiny number of companies, a small number of decisions, a handful of actions, those are what really move the needle.
So find your 20% and go all in on that.
Exactly.
Okay, so you're building this amazing company. You're laser focused on your niche. But you can't do it alone, right? Thiel's got a lot to say about building the right team. He even calls it a conspiracy. He calls the early PayPal team the PayPal Mafia, which sounds a little intense, but I get the point.
Yeah, conspiracy might be a strong word.
Just a bit.
But what Thiel is emphasizing here is the importance of shared values, a real sense of mission. Your team can't just be colleagues. They had to be true believers in what you're building. They need to be conspirators in your success story. Because building something great is never a solo mission.
You've got to have that shared passion, that drive that keeps everyone moving forward. And speaking of moving forward, Thiel's got this whole thing about not leaving success up to chance. He calls it definite optimism.
It's a powerful idea.
It is. So it's not just blind faith. It's about taking control, having a plan, and making things happen.
Right. You're not just hoping for the best. You're actively shaping your future. You're saying, this is what I want, and I'm going to make it happen.
So we've got a clear vision, a killer team, and this unshakable belief in a brighter future. What's next? What does Thiel say about actually building the product or service?
Well, Thiel's very clear on this point. You can have the most groundbreaking product in the world, but if you can't get it into the hands of customers, it doesn't matter.
You can lead a horse to water, right?
Exactly. He dedicates a whole chapter to this often overlooked aspect of business distribution.
Makes sense though, right?
It does,
Yeah.
because there is no one-size-fits-all approach to distribution. You have to be strategic. You need to figure out the best channels to reach your target market. And those channels, they're constantly changing.
It's true.
Whether it's online advertising, partnerships, or just good old-fashioned word of mouth, you need a plan. You have to figure out how to get your product or your service in front of the right people.
Right. And this actually reminds me of Thiel's analysis of the clean tech bubble, which is fascinating.
It is. It's a great example of what can happen when you have a big idea, a solution to a major problem, but you don't have that solid foundation.
Right.
You need more than good intentions.
For sure.
You need a viable business.
It's so easy to get caught up in the excitement of an idea.
Oh, absolutely. Especially when it's something like clean energy. It feels so, I don't know, important.
Right. Saving the world, changing the game.
But Thiel argues that a lot of these clean tech companies, they missed some really crucial things.
Like what?
Well, they overestimated how much people really wanted or needed their products, at least right away.
They thought the market was bigger than it actually was.
Yeah, and they underestimated just how hard it would be to scale up, to go from a good idea to a product that could actually compete.
And turn a profit while they were at it.
Exactly. They were chasing the trend, not necessarily building a sound business.
Which takes us back to Thiel's point about monopolies, right?
Exactly.
Not all monopolies are created equal. Some are built on hype, and some are built on something much more solid.
He's got this great example in the book, Tesla.
They seem to be doing all right.
Right. And Thiel uses them as a case study for how to do it right.
So what did Tesla do differently?
Well, for starters, they targeted a niche market. They weren't trying to be everything to everyone.
High-end electric sports cars, right?
Exactly. They had a vision, they built an incredible team, and they created a product that people were willing to pay a premium for.
And they didn't just ride the clean energy wave. They built a damn good car.
He did. And then they controlled their own distribution, too.
No middleman, no dealerships taking a cut.
They controlled the whole customer experience.
Smart. But here's where things get even more interesting to me. Thiel has this whole section in the book about secrets.
Oh, yeah. Hidden truths that others are missing.
Right. It's like he's saying everyone should be on a treasure hunt for business ideas.
And those secrets can be anything from a new way to solve an old problem to a different way of understanding how people behave.
So how do you find these secrets?
Well, Thiel talks about questioning everything. Like really questioning things, even things that everyone takes for granted. You have to be willing to look in places where no one else is looking, to pay attention to those things that people might overlook or dismiss.
It's that classic think different mantra, but taken to a whole new level.
It is. It's about challenging the status quo, thinking for yourself, and being open to possibilities that others might miss.
Like Airbnb.
Exactly.
Nobody thought you could build $1 billion company by letting people rent out their spare bedrooms.
Right. Everyone thought it was crazy.
But they tapped into this hidden truth, this secret, that people are actually okay with staying in someone else's home if the price and experience are right.
And boom, an empire was born.
Which actually circles back to Thiel's point about monopolies. He's not afraid of them. He argues that in the context of startups, monopolies aren't necessarily a bad thing.
Right. A true monopoly, according to Thiel, is one that creates so much value that it becomes the default choice.
Think about Google again. They dominate search not because they're forcing anyone to use them, but because they provide a better product.
Technically.
And because they're in such a strong position, they can invest in all sorts of long-term projects, research development.
Which leads to even more innovation. It becomes this self-reinforcing cycle.
So you've uncovered your secret, you're building your monopoly. How do you actually structure a company to make all this happen? Because Thiel definitely has some strong opinions about that too.
Oh, yeah, he does. He gets into the nitty-gritty of everything from how to compensate people to creating a company culture where everyone is all in.
One of his big things is aligning incentives, right?
Absolutely. He believes that founders should take modest salaries and instead focus on equity.
So their success is directly tied to the company's success.
Right. It aligns their interests with the investors, and it incentivizes them to create long-term value instead of just going for the quick buck.
He also talks a lot about building a team that is fully committed, right? Like they're all part of this grand mission.
Yeah, he actually uses the word conspirators again, which might sound a little extreme to some people.
Just a bit.
But the point is, you need a team that shares your vision, that is just as passionate as you are about solving the problem you're tackling.
Because building a company from scratch, especially one that's trying to do something new, that's hard.
It is. You're bound to face setbacks, challenges.
You need a team that you can lean on, a team that believes in the mission, even when things get tough.
And Thiel argues that kind of shared commitment. That's essential for success.
Absolutely. He also gets really into the practicalities of building a company, like product development, distribution, hiring the right people.
He does.
And I was surprised by how much emphasis he put on sales. He even says everybody sells.
It's true, though.
It is.
Think about it.
It's not just about having a great product. It's about being able to explain why it's great, why people need it.
Exactly. Engineers have to sell their ideas to their team. Founders have to sell their vision to investors. Artists have to sell their work.
Politicians have to sell their policies.
Everyone's selling something.
The key is to be able to communicate clearly and persuasively.
And honestly, that's a skill that translates to every aspect of life, not just business.
Absolutely. Now, on a slightly different note, Thiel also spends some time in Zero to One exploring the relationship between humans and machines.
Which is a topic that's more relevant than ever.
It feels like it's everywhere we turn these days. AI this, automation that. But Thiel doesn't see technology as the enemy.
No, he sees it as a tool, a powerful tool that we can use to solve problems and create value.
He talks about PayPal's fraud detection system, right?
He does, and it's a great example of how humans and machines can work together. They were facing this massive problem with credit card fraud. They couldn't possibly review every single transaction manually.
So what did they do?
They built a hybrid system, something that combined human intelligence and intuition with the speed and efficiency of computer algorithms.
Like a cyborg fraud detective.
Exactly. And that's what Thiel's getting at. The most effective solutions often come from combining the best of human ingenuity with the power of technology.
It's about working with machines, not against them.
Exactly. It's about using technology strategically to augment our capabilities, not replace them entirely.
Now, we've talked about some successes, companies like Tesla that got it right, but Thiel also spends a good amount of time in the book using the clean tech bubble as a cautionary tale.
Yeah. It's a reminder that even with the best intentions, things can go wrong.
So, in Thiel's view, what went wrong? What can we learn from the clean tech bubble? They were tackling a huge problem.
A really important problem.
So where did they go wrong?
Well, Thiel argues that a lot of clean tech companies got so caught up in the hype. You know, everyone was talking about clean energy saving the planet.
Right, is a hot new thing.
Exactly. And I think they kind of forgot about the fundamentals of building a successful business.
The business side of things got lost in the shuffle.
A little bit. They were so focused on the mission that they didn't necessarily have a solid plan for how to, actually make it work financially, like how to get their product to market at a price that made sense.
And how to scale up without spending themselves into oblivion.
Exactly. They were chasing the trend, but not necessarily building a sustainable business, which honestly kind of brings us full circle, doesn't it?
Back to Thiel's secret.
Yeah.
That hidden truth that nobody else has spotted.
Because it's not enough to just ride a wave,
Definitely not. You've got to have that solid foundation.
You do. And for anyone listening who's thinking about starting a business, building something new, I think that's such an important takeaway. What's your secret? What value can you provide that nobody else can?
It can feel a little overwhelming, though, right? I mean, not all of us are Peter Thiel.
Oh, absolutely. But you don't have to be.
We don't all have a PayPal on our resume.
Right. But what you do have is your own unique set of experiences, skills, and knowledge. And that's where it starts.
So find your niche.
Exactly. Figure out what you're good at, what you're passionate about, what problem you can solve better than anyone else. And don't be afraid to start small.
Thiel's whole start small and monopolize idea.
Exactly. Dominate your little corner of the world, then expand from there.
I love that. So find your secret, build your team, and don't be afraid to challenge the status quo.
That's how real innovation happens. That's how you build something truly new and valuable.
This has been fantastic. Expert speaker, thanks for walking us through 0 to 1. I always learn so much from our conversations.
Me too. And to everyone listening, remember the future isn't something that just happens. We get to build it.
We'll catch you next time for another deep dive.